Have you ever been told that to achieve greatness, you must absolutely fall in love with the grind? Productivity culture constantly screams that you need to wake up smiling at 4 in the morning to conquer your goals. But what if I told you that this is one of the most toxic and paralyzing lies ever sold to us? The truth is that highly disciplined people do not genuinely love the painful parts of their daily routines. They have simply discovered a brilliant loophole to make the hard work happen without needing to feel passionate about it. We live in a world obsessed with motivation and emotional enthusiasm. Whenever we set a new goal, we mistakenly believe that a burning desire is the fuel required to reach the finish line. You might watch a motivational video and feel incredibly pumped up to start exercising every single day. However, human emotions are inherently unstable and completely unpredictable. Your motivation will naturally evaporate the moment you feel stressed, tired, or slightly sick. When that initial excitement fades, you are left staring at a difficult task with zero desire to do it. This is exactly when most people quit and label themselves as weak or lazy. We judge ourselves unfairly because we bought into the myth that the process is supposed to feel amazing. It is time to separate your emotional feelings from your physical actions once and for all. You must realize that lasting consistency has absolutely nothing to do with how much you enjoy the struggle. Let us break down the true mechanics of discipline by looking at how the brain manages energy. The human brain is an ultimate survival machine designed to conserve as much energy as possible. It naturally categorizes every potential action into either a high-friction task or a low-friction task. Friction simply refers to the amount of mental or physical effort required to start doing something. Loving the grind is essentially a psychological trick to temporarily lower the perceived friction of a hard task. When you are highly motivated, running 5 miles feels like a low-friction activity. But biologically, forcing yourself to love something painful is an exhausting mental performance. You cannot sustain that level of emotional acting every single day for years. Real discipline is built on a totally different foundation called environmental inevitability. Inevitability means structuring your life so that the right action happens automatically, regardless of your mood. It is about creating a system where failing to do the right thing actually requires more effort than simply doing it. Think of motivation as a fragile sail on a boat that only works when the wind is perfectly blowing. System design is like having a reliable, heavy-duty motor that pushes the boat forward even in a dead calm. The most productive individuals on Earth rely heavily on their motors, not their sails. They do not wake up and ask themselves if they feel like working today. They completely remove the decision-making process from their mornings. Decision fatigue is a real psychological phenomenon where your willpower drains with every choice you make. If you have to consciously decide to eat a healthy breakfast, you are already wasting precious willpower. By the time you need to do deep, focused work, your mental battery is completely empty. Therefore, the secret to being disciplined without loving the work is to pre-make your decisions. You decide on Sunday what you will eat for the entire week, eliminating daily food choices. You set out your clothes the night before, removing the friction of getting dressed. This concept is beautifully summarized by behavioral experts as standardizing before you optimize. Standardization means establishing a basic, non-negotiable baseline of behavior that runs on autopilot. You do not need to enjoy brushing your teeth every morning, but you do it anyway because it is standardized. It is so deeply ingrained in your daily loop that skipping it feels deeply uncomfortable. Your ultimate goal is to make reading, exercising, or saving money feel just like brushing your teeth. It becomes an emotionless, automatic sequence of events rather than a passionate daily battle. You transition from an amateur who waits for inspiration to a professional who sticks to a schedule. A professional writer does not only write when they feel a wave of profound creative joy. A professional writer sits at their desk at exactly 8 o'clock and types words, even if they hate it that day. They accept the boredom and the frustration as standard operating costs. You must grant yourself the permission to despise a task while still executing it perfectly. It is incredibly liberating to say, "I really hate this workout right now, but I am doing it anyway." This mindset completely destroys the guilt associated with not loving the grind. You realize that your feelings are valid, but they are also irrelevant to the execution of the plan. When you detach your emotions from your habits, you become virtually unstoppable. You stop riding the emotional roller coaster of productivity highs and lazy lows. Instead, you walk a straight, boring, but incredibly effective path toward your ultimate goals. You begin to understand that boring routines are the actual secret ingredients of extraordinary success. Excitement is required to start a project, but pure, unfiltered boredom is required to finish it. You must learn to make peace with the mundane, repetitive nature of true progress. Excellence is not a sudden explosion of brilliant effort, but the quiet accumulation of unsexy daily tasks. You do not rise to the level of your grandest ambitions or dreams. You always fall back to the solid level of your pre-designed systems and environments. If your system requires you to love the struggle, your system is fundamentally broken. A good system assumes that you are tired, grumpy, and completely unmotivated. It works despite your human flaws, wrapping you in a web of positive constraints. Constraints are artificial rules you place on yourself to force a desired outcome. By voluntarily restricting your own freedom, you paradoxically achieve the ultimate freedom of discipline. You are essentially building a bowling alley with the bumpers up, guaranteeing you knock down the pins. The ball will bounce around, you might not throw it perfectly, but it will reach the end. You do not need to love the throw, you just need to keep rolling the ball down the lane. Let go of the fantasy that one day you will wake up and magically love eating broccoli. Focus instead on making broccoli the easiest, most accessible food in your entire kitchen. Let us look at a practical analogy involving a marathon runner to solidify this concept. Most people look at an elite runner training in the freezing rain and think they must genuinely love the cold. They assume the runner has some genetic mutation that makes suffering feel like pure joy. In reality, that runner is probably miserable and wishing they were back in a warm bed. The crucial difference is that they arranged a meeting with a running partner at 6 in the morning. The social friction of letting down their friend is drastically higher than the physical friction of running. They engineered a situation where staying in bed became the more painful option. This completely dismantles the widespread myth of the lone, fiercely motivated wolf. Discipline is rarely an isolated act of sheer willpower. It is usually a well-structured social or environmental trap. Another common misconception is that if you do not love your work, you are in the wrong career. We are constantly fed the romantic idea that passion is the only valid prerequisite for hard work. However, passion often follows mastery rather than preceding it. You might actually start to enjoy the grind only after you have become incredibly skilled at it. But to reach that level of mastery, you must survive the long phase of being terrible and bored. During that difficult gap, your automated systems are the only things keeping you afloat. So, how can you apply this emotionless, system-based discipline to your life today? The first step is to aggressively lower the expectations you have about your own feelings. Give yourself full permission to complain, whine, and feel completely uninspired. Acknowledge the bad mood, but physically move your body toward the task anyway. Next, you must build immediate, unavoidable triggers into your physical environment. If you want to study every evening, disconnect your router and leave the study materials on your pillow. Make the act of avoiding your work practically impossible without monumental effort. Finally, implement the strategy of pre-commitment to lock your future self into doing the right thing. Pay for that expensive gym class up front, so losing the money hurts more than exercising. Announce your deadline publicly to your peers to leverage the powerful force of social pressure. By treating your future self like a lazy person who needs strict boundaries, you guarantee your success. You stop wishing for a passionate heart and start building an unbreakable system. To bring it all together, remember that discipline is simply a design problem, not a character flaw. You do not need to possess a burning passion or an endless reservoir of motivational energy. You just need to build a clever environment where doing the hard thing becomes your default setting. Stop trying to force yourself to fall in love with the painful grind of daily progress. That toxic lie only sets you up for inevitable guilt when your motivation naturally fades. Accept the boredom, build the system, and let the automatic habits do the heavy lifting for you. When you detach your emotions from your actions, you unlock the ultimate cheat code to consistency. Are you ready to stop chasing motivation and start engineering your environment today?